Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the HGLRC Veyron25CR. Features AOLS 1404 3600 kV motors. On those motors are Gem Fan 5-bladed props. Down inside there we've got the Zeus F722 mini flight controller that runs an input voltage from 3 to 6S, and the Zeus 28 amp BL Heli S ESC with a peak current rating of 35 amps for 10 seconds. Also down inside there is the Zeus Nano 350 milliwatt VTX that does go from 25 milliwatt all the way up to 350 milliwatt. The FPV camera is the Caddx Ratel 2. We have the HGLRC hammer antenna, which is mounted onto TPU mount. We have a buzzer and 2 LEDs. Has not only one, but 2 base mounts. Of course, this is my print for the Insta360 Go. It comes with foam to run around the outside of the ducts, but I think that's probably only minorly useful, and especially for inside flight. You do have to secure them to the ducts with these little strips of double-sided sticky tape. I flew it without the foam on, just like you see it. We get an extra set of props, 2 extra set of screws and an extra battery strap, prop direction card, fly safe card, flight stack wiring map and manual, the obligatory sheet that we get on FrSky receivers, and 2 sheets of stickers. I quite like that one. It does have this bottom carbon fiber plate that secures the whoops down to the rest of the frame, and it appears to be 2 millimeters thick. Motor post to motor post looks to be 120 millimeters. And yes, just like you, I just noticed I've been flying it without screws in this prop. That's how tight those props are. With my TPU mount and the screw to mount it, it weighs 195 3/4 grams. I flew it on this race day quad 850 milliamp 4S battery, which brings the weight to just about 295 grams. With the Insta360 Go2 and the battery, it comes to 321 grams. And even if you fly it on a smaller battery, such as this 4S 650 milliamp Cotter battery, we're still well over 250 grams at almost 299 grams. If you look in the top right-hand corner of the frame, you can see that the leaves are blowing around a little bit, but actually down on the ground, it's really kind of still. But of course, as I go up and over the house, the wind will hit this, but I thought it did pretty well. The mount that I've got on there, unfortunately, we're going to see part of that in our Insta360 Go view that we are looking at here. As that Insta360 Go kind of stabilizes and moves our focus around, it catches the edge of the mount, the lens protection of that mount. But this flight is again on that 850 milliamp 4S battery. It's going to run for just about 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 57 seconds by my notes. And it's actually quite smooth. Remember, this is not what you see in the goggles. This is the camera that's mounted to the quad and recording right to that camera. So this is, anybody who's not familiar, this is not what we see in the goggles. That's something I kind of miss sometimes when we have these sort of quads on the channel. I am going to try to fly it faster, and it's going to be a little bit comical. You might want to skip ahead to that. I'll just show you a section of it. There's no reason to go the whole flight. It's not unexpected that this is designed around doing slow, cruisy, smooth flight. And I ridiculously tried to fly it faster. And I tried to fly it faster because, well, you never know. You don't know until you try. I think I'm going to have a bump right here. I just kind of navigate oddly around the barbecue there. But, I like to try these things out. And if you don't try, then you never know. I actually tried to thread the needle underneath that bench chair thing there a few times. And I found that in the 5 or 6 times I tried to go through that in one particular battery, that the closest I got to being successful was the camera, and it got moved back into the battery. Actually, I clipped it on my way through, and that jolted it back into the battery. When I looked at the footage, then the camera was really trying to look down at that horizon for the FPV stabilization. And it was funny, but it certainly didn't look good. It was kind of fun to try that. Something that I do just to try to make it interesting, but I always like this fence run. I like that whenever I'm flying. I like that fence run. That's kind of my origins to why I got hooked and started on FPV, was that sort of pod racing feel. It's one of the reasons why I like flying inside so much too, because everything's so close that you get that pod racing feel that you do from Star Wars. So those fence runs, I tend to do those in just about every flight. I'm oftentimes most happy when I can get as low as possible, and you just get that extra sense of speed when everything kind of whizzes around. Also, when we flew over the patio there, when the leaves kind of pop up, that's a pretty cool shot as well. But of course, when you're down that low and you get all that prop wash and that thrust that's bouncing off the ground, it can cause some stability issues, which was part of the issue with me trying to shoot that gap underneath that bench chair thing there. In this video, we don't have Mr. Squirrel who visits us. We oftentimes do have squirrels, and that will get noticed by some people in the videos. But as far as, you know, wanting a 2.5 inch that does this sort of flying, it does it just fine. It's got a nice FPV camera. The Caddx Ratel 2 is a nice FPV camera. We'll take a look at that in the faster flight. And no complaints really there. I think in most natural daylight time shots and even some dusk or somewhat dark situations, I think you'll find that that camera works pretty well. I don't know if I reviewed the Ratel 2 on the channel. I may have only done the baby Ratels. I can't say, but I should have searched that on the channel before I started talking about it. Unfortunately, we don't come in that, you know, that magic weird number of 250 grams. We just don't, especially if we have that third-party camera. The Insta360 Go, if you needed to do the calculations, I think it weighs 29 grams, which is really, really close to a naked GoPro. And that's why I kind of use this. Is I'm trying to incorporate this a little bit more so that people can see the Insta360 Go2 and its footage and how it works. The naked GoPro, I think, you know, it's a little bit dated technology, and it has a little bit of that warped or fisheye view that I think can sometimes have an impact on how people view these type of quads when you're showing them that recorded view and you're using a naked GoPro 6. You know, it's not exactly new, so I'd like to incorporate newer technologies when it comes to these, but I don't always do that. It doesn't come with any sort of mount, which I wish it did, and now you can hear the beeper, and I quickly try to turn around and I hit the little tomato plant stand, so the beeper comes on. I could have flown a little bit longer though, because the beeper, the low power setting could be set just a little bit lower to get you another 15-20 seconds, because the battery did bounce back well over 3.5 volts per cell. Okay, this is a faster flight here where I'm just kind of doing the silly, ridiculous testing, and you'll see where it doesn't care for it, but you know, as I say, you never know until you try. I'm a big believer in our own experiences, and when we have an opportunity to have our own experiences, we should give them a go. Obviously, that roll had quite a bit of bobble in there. Not to be, you know, it's not surprising, but again, I like to try these things because, well, I like to fly, and even if something doesn't fly well, I still enjoy my time out flying. Maybe that's why I do this and I fly so much, is that it doesn't really matter if something flies bad, then yeah, I'm not having a good time. Oh boy. And you can see the camera mount. It flopped down in the camera view. Sorry, I misstated that earlier. It didn't flop back, it flopped forward. And so the footage was not so good. It did record this, but this looks really weird when that camera tries to do the FPV stabilization. Let's jump to a little bit more of that, so you can get a sense of how it flies. So if you needed to know, you know, in a scenario where if you had this and you were looking at this and you needed to fly faster, what things can it do if you fly faster? Obviously, we've already shown that with rolls you're going to get bounce back, pitch you're going to get flips you're going to get bounce back, dives. You can do dives. It's just you have to use so much throttle and come out so early. I tried a few more times after this particular flight, and it's a challenge, and it doesn't look good. So, again, not a surprise. It's ridiculous testing, but I like to give these things a go. Even though it doesn't fly, or it's not designed to fly this way, I still enjoy my time outside on the sticks and just getting to experience FPV. It's always new and fresh when you've got all these different things that you're trying out, and I enjoy the process. I enjoy the process of flying, and whatever I'm flying, I try to have a good time. Note down in the bottom it says on time. Typically I change the OSD. I forgot to change the OSD this time, where it says on time is usually fly time. Fly time is your arm time. That's your actual amount of time in your arm. Also note in the OSD in the top right, it does have race band 8 and 600 milliwatt. I'm not sure if that's correct to the paper specs versus what's printed on the website versus what you see in product pages. I think it probably is 600, but you know, oftentimes with VTXs we have some people have those testers and can test things out. Sometimes they're really accurate, sometimes they're not. So you should judge the reception as you see it here. Of course, it's there are variables to reception: cell phone towers, RF interference of other sorts. Humidity impacts our reception when it comes to analog signals. It may impact digital signals as well. It's just I haven't noticed that quite as much. I have seen it with analog quite a bit. A dry day and I get real good, crystal clear picture, and then a humid day flying the same thing. Not so much. Okay, I've talked all the way through that flight. Let's go ahead and head back to the desk. There isn't a whole lot to talk about. Obviously, when I was doing the faster flying, one good thing that does come out of that is it does give it a little bit of a durability test. No, I did not replace this prop. That was like that the whole time, and those props there's something to get on there. I mean, yeah, so I've been flying this without any prop screws in there. The screw that we need to mount stuff isn't included. I found that a little bit odd. Maybe it was just my package. Seems like that should be, with this type of quad, that should always be included. They did cut notches. Hopefully you can see right there. So you can take a hex driver and just get it right through there. And so you can change your camera angle if you need to. And you can see that was my camera angle, my faster flights. I did those faster flights after I'd done a number of those cinematic slow cruisy flights. And I've got some grass inside the ducts as well. The foam pads... again, you're going to need to use these and stick them on here. Unfortunately, so if you have a use for these to come on and off, I don't know how many times you're going to be able to use these. They are pretty dang sticky, but again, I don't know if that's going to tear the foam when you take these back off if you need to. When you put these on, it is going to be louder. It's just universally how it works, so we need to apply either here or here on the foam pad and then stick them in these little notches they've got. Kind of press them into place, and then that's how it looks with the foam pads. Of course, you can tell from this angle, if you were to, you can get something small, say a pole or a chair or side or something like that, something that could fit in here, you could hit straight on this plastic mold here. Otherwise, the foam would provide some form of bounce protection, but you know, I crashed it headlong right into the ground. Of course, that's not into cement or some other sort of really immovable object. The ground does give a little bit, and we have the cushioning of the grass as we get to the ground. Yeah, I've tested its durability to a degree, as I do just about all quads, because when I do reviews to the point where I show full flights, and I fly them enough to where I've made more than one mistake, and so I've had multiple crashes on every quad that has come to the channel. I think that's part of the review process, is to fly them enough to where you do make mistakes and you do crash. We've seen it before. HGLRC has this flush-mounted USB-C port. I added the zip tie to ensure that my power lead didn't get tugged on and thus didn't pull on the ESC, so that's something you might want to do. That's universal for all quads. I think we need to do that, just to make sure we don't get this lead pulled on, because when you do have one of those crashes and the battery ejects by chance, it's less likely here that it would happen, but there could be a scenario where it happened. But just don't want this to tug on it, tug on your ESC down there and pull those pads off, because I've seen plenty of pictures online of that happening to poor people. We got a chance to hear the beeper. The LEDs are fine. I suppose you could use those in a scenario where someone was chasing you, but it seems like this would be the quad chasing, wouldn't it? I don't know. It occurs that way to me. Of course, it's got a TPU print here that is mounted for the LED area, and then our receiver is right in here. Now, that was a little bit of a challenge getting to the button of the receiver. I don't think I'm going to be able to show it, but the button for that XM Plus is kind of diagonally back there. What I did was I took a hex driver and slid this back as far as I could, so I could get pretty much straight down with the hex driver. I could use my switch. I could hold that button down, hit the switch on my power lead, and then it would power up and I'd get the green and red lights. Of course, if you have different receivers, there's different processes for binding, but that's what I went through with this particular one. You can see maybe down here in that corner how the flight stack is rubber mounted, so that's a good thing. It does have wire leads that go from the ESC to the flight controller, so you don't have to worry about pins. That's also another good thing. You don't have really an opportunity to toilet tank your battery here. I do wish we did have that. If we could run the battery strap front to back, then we could put the battery this way. That might impact its flight to some degree, because then you have battery that might be hanging over the area where the props are pulling in air. So natively, it mounts right here in the center and just runs along the body. Yeah, not too much more to say about it. It's cinewhoop, and it's typical cinewhoop in a 2.5-inch form factor. And with the quad bladed props, it makes a fair bit of noise, as you got to hear in the video. That is, again, the audio to the flight is from a camera that is sitting on the table near me, so you have that pilot perspective of how much noise something makes and what it sounds like in flight. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.